One game shy of the World Series left Brewers fans hungry for another shot. Today, after 5 months, the wait for redemption is over. Plus, a national hotline might be the best known resource, but help for those nearby is just a local call away. And construction season will be even busier than usual in the Northwoods this year. We take you out to one specific spot that will lead to some big changes for years to come. Your local news starts right now.
Your local news and weather from where you live. News Watch 12 at 5 starts now.
Good evening. Every Brewers opening day feels like a public holiday here in Wisconsin, maybe none more than this one. Coming off an appearance in the NLCS last year, the Brewers are facing some of the highest expectations they've ever had. And today they took the first step toward meeting them with a 5-4 win over the St. Louis Cardinals. News Watch 12's Andrew Goldstein was there. We begin with him live at Miller Park. And Andrew, the Brewers defense really showed up today, specifically a guy who probably should have won a Gold Glove last year.
Yes, he probably should have. Lorenzo Cain made possibly the play of the year, even though the year is only in its first game. I don't think Brewers fans in attendance will ever forget Cain's leaping, robbing of a home run that could have tied the game in the top of the 9th inning. This is actually the continuation of a positive trend from last year for the Brewers. They ranked second in the entire MLB in runs saved. And they had some plays today that were pretty nice outside of the leaping catch. Cain had a diving catch in center that robbed a bloop single. Jesus Aguilar had a nice stab at first base. Basically, all good vibes here at Miller Park on opening day.
Certainly, but we don't want to just talk about defense here tonight, Andrew. Milwaukee's bats got going after a little bit of a slow start. So why do you think Milwaukee generated so much power out there today?
Well, I think you really have to look at who the Cardinals sent out to the mound. Starting pitcher Miles Mikolas, for whatever reason, the Brewers have his number. He has allowed 19 home runs since coming back into the MLB last season. The Brewers have 7 of them, including 3 today. Mike Moustakas started off with a solo home run, got the Brewers on the board, and then the big one, the MVP, Christian Yelich, with a 3-run shot in the bottom of the 3rd. That put the Brewers up permanently. Even the pitcher got in on the action. Jhoulys Chacin with a solo shot. He became the only Milwaukee Brewers opening day starting pitcher to hit a home run. Warren Spahn did it for the Braves in 1960 when Milwaukee was the Braves. But for the Brewers, it is Chacin alone at the top of that mountain. Now, we are not done here at Miller Park, not by a long shot. Maisie Vincent is in the clubhouse right now. She's talking to players, getting the inside scoop. We will have her live at 6 with what they said about a remarkable opening day at Miller Park. For now, in Milwaukee, Andrew Goldstein, Newswatch 12.
Well, the boys of summer brought plenty of spring weather with them today. Jeff, nice in Milwaukee and pretty nice here in the Northwoods on this Thursday. People struggling with their mental health may not know where to turn in a crisis. But for those in Forest, Oneida, and Vilas counties, there is a resource that can get them immediate help. Newswatch 12's Dakota Sherrick joins us live in the studio with more on the local crisis hotline. Dakota, good evening.
Lane, most people know of the National Suicide Hotline, but not everyone knows that here in the Northwoods there's a crisis line specifically for our area. Its purpose, to give support to those who need it. A quick dial
Family Services Crisis Center
is all it takes to get some help.
For somebody who maybe doesn't have that extra support or doesn't know what to do in a moment that they feel that they're stressed out or experiencing a crisis.
Human Services Bridget Ploutz says when people in Forest, Oneida, or Vilas County call the crisis hotline, they are connected with a mental health professional
To help them really manage their situation and feel better at the end of that phone call.
The call center itself is located in Brown County, but if a person is in serious need, a locally based mobile screener will often be called in to assist.
We get about 2,000 calls a year to the crisis line, and out of that, about 800 to 900 results in a mobile crisis contact with one of our local screeners.
Human Services screeners work with law enforcement in mental health crisis situations, a partnership Captain Ron Lewinberg says is invaluable.
There's no one type mental health crisis call where we can say they're all the same.
Because each situation is unique and the needs of each individual vary, officers in the mental health screener screener will come up with a plan for the person in crisis together.
They're the first ones on the scene, so they're the ones who have the majority of the information, and that collateral contact is essential in order for us all to make a good decision to keep someone safe.
So we can de-escalate what is oftentimes a very tense situation for the person having the crisis.
But the hope is that people will call the crisis line before it gets that far to start their journey towards better mental health.
We don't want anybody walking around not feeling good and feeling like they're alone in this process. There's a lot of resources and supports, and half of it is just finding out what those are.
People who call the crisis line, which runs 24/7, can remain anonymous. It is for anyone who feels they need help or know someone who is struggling. The only time law enforcement would be contacted is if the mental health specialist is seriously concerned about someone's safety.
All right, Dakota, thank you very much. Police in Stevens Point released the names of the people involved in a stabbing yesterday morning. According to police, Dash Rivera and his cousin Robert Knowles confronted Brendan Castaneda at Rivera's apartment. Castaneda was reportedly caught sleeping with Rivera's girlfriend, Sarah Neek, and was attacked by Rivera and Knowles. Castaneda stabbed the two men, and Neek was injured trying to break up that fight. Rivera has been referred to the Portage County DA's office for charges of battery and disorderly conduct. Knowles has been referred to the Portage County District Attorney's office for charges of battery. 2 years ago, the Forest County Board floated the idea of a $26 million expansion and renovation of the courthouse. Many taxpayers didn't like that level of spending. Well, now a new Forest County Board thinks a different option might be smarter and cheaper. It includes an abandoned sheriff's home and abandoned jail. In Newswatch 12's Ben Meyer joins us to explain. Ben, good evening.
Lane, good evening. No prisoners have been held in the cells for decades, and no one has lived in the sheriff's residence for that time either. But the abandoned buildings, finished in 1911, are still connected to the Forest County Courthouse. Last week, an engineer found them to be holding up pretty well.
The assessment shows that this building is structurally sound and any defects can be easily remedied.
Steve Bunda chairs the county's Building and Public Property Committee. He says that group will discuss renovations in departments that could move into the old jail and sheriff's residence. The buildings have been empty and unheated since Forest County built its new jail and sheriff's office in the 1990s. Lane?
All right, Ben Meyer live in our studio tonight. Ben, thank you. A trip through the intersection of Highways 8 and 47 in Rhinelander usually means dodging quite a few potholes, maybe stopping for the lights as well. Well, that all will be changing this year. Newswatch 12's Devin Biggs joins us live from the intersection with more. Devin, good evening.
Good evening, Lane. The intersection of routes 8 and 47 are one of the busiest in the Rhinelander area. It's also developed quite a few potholes recently, gotten bumpy quite recently thanks to a number of potholes. A project in the works with the Wisconsin Department of Transportation hopes to fix that. The DOT plans to remove the stoplights at the intersection and build a roundabout. A contract hasn't been signed yet, but the DOT expects to send it to the governor soon. Hopes are a roundabout will improve safety while handling more traffic.
The roundabout, it's a safer alternative. It is the most cost-effective alternative. It increases the level of service for traffic in the intersection.
As the traffic cones and detours go up, drivers will need to be more careful. Fines for tickets double in work zones. The Oneida County Sheriff's Office wants people to stay safe when in a construction zone.
Just slow down, pay attention to the signage and defensive driving, like what was taught in driver's ed. You know, be aware of your surroundings when you're driving.
The project is expected to start sometime in early summer and last until October. A final timeline will not be known for a little while. Musson Brothers landed the project and contract and will have plans laid out once the contract gets approved. Live in Rhinelander, Devin Biggs, Newswatch 12.
Devin, thank you. Tomahawk's Mary Felskowski argues lawmakers have been passing laws in lame duck sessions for 30 years. Felskowski believes laws she and Republicans passed late last year will eventually stand up in court. A 3-judge panel in Wausau reinstated many of the laws yesterday. They had originally been blocked by a Madison judge. Some of the laws take power away from Democratic Governor Tony Evers and give it to the legislature.
I think this should have been done a long time ago, no matter who the sitting governor is. I think that we had ceded too much power to the executive branch over the years, and I think that was very evident.
Felskowski said she thinks after all the appeals, the laws will be found constitutional. The Wausau judges will now consider the case more closely. Every spring, volunteer scientists head to marshes and lakes in darkness to listen. Their ears are trained to identify 12 different species of frogs and toads. Newswatch 12's Dan Hagan joins us live in our newsroom and has more on that tonight. Dan, good evening.
Good evening, Lane. For 35 years, people have participated in the Wisconsin Frog and Toad Survey. Conservation biologist Andrew Baji is looking for more volunteers to participate. Surveyors learn all the different frog and toad calls so they can recognize the amphibian just by hearing it. Baji provides volunteers with audio files of calls.
That's a really fun activity you can get your kids out on, and at the same time they get tired halfway through and then they're sleeping in the back of the cars.
Baji uses the data to monitor frog and toad populations. One of the trends he's noticed is an increase in bullfrog population.
That's been kind of a welcome surprise because back in the early 1900s there was a lot more pressure on people harvesting bullfrogs.
There are a couple different ways to volunteer. To find out more, email WFTS@wi.gov. Lane?
Dan Hagan live in our newsroom tonight. Dan, thank you. Betsy DeVos is defending a proposal to eliminate funding for the Special Olympics. So how much backlash has she been getting over those $18 million in cuts, and what she has to say? It's after your full forecast. All across the country today, many people are challenging Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos after a proposed budget cut to the Special Olympics program came out. It's no small figure, $18 million. NBC's Jay Gray has more.
Education Secretary Betsy DeVos back in front of the Senate Appropriations Committee and back on the hot seat.
Can I ask you, did you personally approve this? I think a yes or no will do. The $18 million cut of the funding for Special Olympics?
No, I didn't personally get involved in that.
The backlash over proposed cuts to funding for the program growing online.
I love my teammates. I love Special Olympics.
Maria Shriver, whose mother founded Special Olympics, posting, "Don't try to balance our nation's budget on the back of those with special needs. Not your best."
I love Special Olympics myself.
DeVos responding to the criticism at today's hearing.
I hope all of this debate encourages lots of private contributions to Special Olympics. So let's not use disabled children in a twisted way for your political narrative.
She says the administration supports children with disabilities in other ways and that the private sector will step up with donations to help fund the program. The chair of the organization says it's just another hurdle for his athletes and their families.
They've had to fight for decades, if not centuries, to be seen, to be understood, to be welcomed, to be treated fairly.
And he insists they are up for the fight. Jay Gray, NBC News.
Special counsel Robert Mueller's Russia investigation ended, but that does not mean President Trump feels any better about the FBI right now. As President Trump heads to Michigan for his first rally since the end of the Mueller investigation, he's lashing out at the FBI director he fired. But James Comey isn't taking it quietly either. He spoke about the investigation he once oversaw in an interview with NBC's Lester Holt.
There was smoke, and enough smoke to justify investigating, and obviously there was overwhelming evidence that the Russians were interfering in the election.
Comey is joining others who want the public release of Mueller's report, which is reportedly more than 300 pages long. So far, all that's been seen is a 4-page summary from Attorney General William Barr. With all the excitement of the Brewers, we would be remiss to forget about the Bucks, who are in the top seed in the NBA right now. They're taking on another Western Conference opponent tonight. After the break, we'll give you a preview of that game against the Clippers. Stay with us. We know the Brewers opened their season earlier today with a big win, and the Bucks too will keep Milwaukee buzzing as they head into tonight to take on the LA Clippers. The Clippers and Bucks last met back in November. LA actually won that game 128-126. Clippers come into this game sitting 6th in the West with a 45-30 record, while the Bucks are sitting above everyone in the league at 56-19. Game tips off tonight at 7 o'clock on FS Wisconsin. Time to stop dreaming and come back to reality here tonight. You probably did not win the Powerball, but someone in southeastern Wisconsin, it appears, did. Winning Powerball ticket worth $768 million was sold in the city of New Berlin. Winner has not been identified yet, but what if the winner decides to get paid in a lump sum? Wisconsin Lottery says that will still be almost $500 million.
The person, if they would take the annuity, would do the $768.4 million, but if they would take it as a lump sum, it would be $477 million in cash.
Pocket change, right? Even if you didn't match every number, all hope is not totally lost. According to the Wisconsin Lottery, 2 tickets won $2 million in Wednesday's drawing, and 7 more won a measly $1 million. We're back with one last look at your $1 million forecast after this. Pretty quiet for the next 4 days out there.
Quiet, yeah.
Jeff, thanks. Thanks for joining us here tonight at 5. Well, he captured our hearts with his leaping grab. At 6, hear from Lorenzo Cain. We'll see you then.